So here we are, tied up underneath the Rensen along the Detroit River. Considering that the previous day's river traffic had been fairly light, I'd hoped that the second day docked down here by the Rensen would be better. I was not disappointed. The first lake boat passage was just before sunrise. The CSL Niagara. Notice that I left the background sounds in. Having grown up in a railroad family on the industrial side of Saginaw, Michigan, the train whistles reminded me of back home and my dad, who was a railroad engineer. Our second passage of the day was the river-class laker Manitowoc. She too slid past in the early morning. Later that morning, a boat nerd favorite, the Joe Block, eased past us. Just before lunch, the big treat of the day was served up by the Tim S. Duel. She blew a salute for her Canadian flag. Then she passed the Queen of the Lakes, Paul R. Tregurtha, nearly right in front of me. Almost all of our passengers, including my brother, were on the luxury tour buses headed back from their excursion at the Ford family home when this took place. Later in my lecture, I would tell the audience that they had missed the Queen of the Lakes, the largest vessel afloat on the Great Lakes, 1,013 feet long. They gave a collective sigh. But I informed them that my boat nerd senses told me that the timing of this missed passage would likely set them up to catch her up close and personal when we got to the Soo in 2 days. Of course, we'll see in about 48 hours if my instincts were correct. The Paul R. was our last daylight passage as the cruise ship headed up the Detroit River and the St. Clair River in rain and growing darkness. We were bound for my favorite place on the Great Lakes, one of them, Tobermory, Ontario. Our final encounter of that day was in the darkness and rain along the channel into open Lake Huron. She was the Algoma Innovator. Some of the passengers were amazed at how close and how fast she passed us. Next, part 3, Tobermory and the Sioux. And we'll see if my boat nerd senses and timing were correct.